Ah, I see you're finally reading some of those books I recommended. In order to truly understand modern fantasy and science fiction, it is important to read the classic authors such as... comics. You bought a bunch of comics. Didn't you just turn 30 recently?
Shh! I don't want them to know!
Well, I hope you at least got some intellectually stimulating works like Mouse or Sandman or... are those all Power Rangers comics?
Yeah, I found them on sale for cheap, and so I bought a whole bunch of them. I'm really curious to see what writers and artists can do with the property when they're not fighting the limitations of a small television budget or having to mold their stories around pre-existing Japanese footage.
No, Kumar, this is something he must experience himself. We cannot interfere. Don't worry, he'll be okay. I hope. Don't you think this is a bit extreme?
How could they do it? They made it worse! They made it worse! Just, come on, look at the Thunder Megazord! Did any of these artists actually watch the show?
Wow, this is lazy. How much did you pay for these?
I got each of them for about $1.
And you were expecting them to be good.
In retrospect, I really should have seen this coming. No, I am not reading another one of those. Wait a second. This actually looks pretty damn good.
I look amazing. Look at the detail here. I knew I was beautiful. I knew it.
Yes, Kumar. It is time for a transformation sequence. Today, we're talking about the comics. Contrast Buckler! 2016 was a big year for Power Rangers. There was a lot of hype for a big budget movie in the works, and on top of that, Boom Studios announced that it was going to make a new comic series based on the original MMPR series.
Whether you loved it or hated it, the 2017 film did not live up to expectations, and wasn't the flame fans were hoping to reignite enthusiasm for the franchise in a modern audience.
The Boom comics, on the other hand, were actually doing pretty well, and in 2017 we got another comic line set before the appearance of the Green Ranger called Go Go Power Rangers, which is simply amazing.
We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, though. Boom was not the first company to try to capitalize on the success of the Power Rangers by creating a comic tie-in series. The earliest comics were issued in 1994 during the show's second season by Hamilton Comics.
Who are Hamilton Comics?
The history of that company is a bit complicated. Hamilton produced a total of 13 issues, ending in a 3-part series called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Saga.
Okay, let's see here. It looks like Saga just retells the important plot points from the show, including Day of the Dumpster, the Green with Evil miniseries, the arrival of Lord Zed, the Rangers getting the Thunder Zords, Tommy losing his Green Ranger powers and becoming the White Ranger, and the arrival of the replacement Rangers, Rocky, Adam, and Aisha.
Fun note, the Saga comics are the only comics in the Hamilton series that depict the Dino Zords. All the other comics have the Thunder Zords. The first 2 issues have Jason, Zack, and Trini. The rest of them until the Saga 3-part run are with Rocky, Adam, and Aisha due to Austin St. John, Walter Jones, and Thuy Trang leaving the show because Saban was a cheapskate who didn't want to pay them what they were worth.
The Hamilton comics, unfortunately, kind of suck. I'm looking at some of the earlier issues, and they actually do a decent job of creating the feel of the domestic scenes from an episode of Mighty Morphin. There are sequences that I could easily picture being put into the show.
Unfortunately, the action sequences are all lackluster and hard to follow. A lot of what attracted children to Power Rangers was the highly stylized fight choreography and the spectacle of special effects provided by Toei's Super Sentai footage.
You'd think that a comic which wasn't bound by the cost of props, film, or having to structure their story around pre-existing footage would have a huge advantage over the show, but most of these comics look worse than what was on TV.
The art is all over the place. There are some issues where the character likenesses are actually reasonably close to the series actors, but then you have issues like this, and this. There is also just nonsense, like the power coins and the Radbug being red for some reason.
The only real consistency of this line of comics is that no one knew how to draw the Thunder Megazord. There are several panels where it doesn't even have a shoulder pad, and here is a panel where it had a 1920s robot clamp hand for some reason. It's not hard to see why this series was cancelled within 1 year of release, but I have to ask again, who are Hamilton Comics?
Well, like I said before, their history is a bit complicated and ends up intersecting with Scrooge McDuck.
You mean like DuckTales? I love that show, both the original and the 2017 reboot, but what possible connection could Power Rangers have with Disney's duck characters?
Quite a lot, surprisingly. Hamilton Comics is named after Bruce Hamilton. In 1981, he and his friend Russ Cochran founded a company called Another Rainbow Publishing. Its main purpose was to reprint the Disney comics by Carl Barks and to raise public awareness of Barks' contributions to the culture.
I know Carl Barks. He's more or less the creator of everything people know from DuckTales. He came up with Scrooge, Duckburg, the Beagle Boys, and Gyro Gearloose, among others. How is he not well known at the time for creating so many iconic characters?
Because most artists who worked for Disney at the time produced their work anonymously, with only Walt Disney's name being seen on the cover. Hamilton and Cochran weren't the first to bring attention to Barks, but they were the ones responsible for him becoming a superstar in the 80s, leading to Barks becoming one of the 3 inaugural inductees of the Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame.
Wait. I thought someone like Bruce Hamilton would have been producing superhero comics or something like that.
In their heyday, the Disney comics were way more popular than the likes of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and so it's no surprise that Uncle Scrooge was the character Hamilton grew up on and held dearly in his heart. In 1981, the year it was founded, Another Rainbow published an award-winning book called The Fine Art of Walt Disney's Donald Duck, which was a collection of oil paintings Barks had made featuring the many duck characters of the Disney comics. They had started exploding in popularity in the 70s. In 1983, Another Rainbow then began its long quest to finish the Carl Barks Library, a complete collection of Barks's comics, which would not be completed until mid-1990. These hardbound volumes reproduced Barks's work in black and white line art as close as possible to the way Barks originally drew them. In addition, the library is filled with interviews, storyboards, and even academic critiques. It was among the first collection of comics created not just to archive and preserve the history of comics, but also encourage academic criticism of the medium.
Wow! I had no idea this crappy 90s comic book publishing company had such important ties to the history of comics.
We're not even close to done. After releasing The Fine Art of Disney's Donald Duck, Another Rainbow created lithographs and a series of bone china figurines of Barks' characters with input from Barks himself.
You mean like Funko Pops?
Classy Funko Pops. Unfortunately, most, if not all, were destroyed in 2001 due to a dispute with Disney.
But those represent an important part of an artist's and character's history.
That's modern-day capitalism for you. It's better to destroy something to preserve its monetary value than to preserve it. In 1986, a subsidiary company to Another Rainbow called Gladstone Publishing was formed. In addition to publishing reprints of Carl Barks stories, it also reprinted Mickey Mouse stories by Floyd Gottfredson. There are a number of modern Disney comic artists that got their start working on these reprints at Gladstone Publishing. Gladstone even released their own version of the Carl Barks library in color. This project started in 1992 and finished in 1998.
Where does Hamilton Comics fit into all of this?
Hamilton Comics itself was established in 1991. It did a lot of licensing stuff like Dick Tracy, Felix the Cat, and Eek the Cat. It looks like they did okay for a while, but they did not survive the comic book crash of the 90s.
Still, it's strange. When I started researching Hamilton comics, I thought they were going to turn out to be some shitty little company started by a greedy businessman who was just trying to get rich quick by getting into the booming comic industry. To learn that this short run of poorly drawn Mighty Morphin Power Ranger comics has ties to a project which not only helped give credit and recognition to deserving comic book writers and artists, but even helped mature the medium as a whole is a bit, well, humbling.
Bruce Hamilton died in 2005 as a result of a long illness. Another Rainbow and Gladstone are no longer active publishers.
There's a large number of people who are only going to be familiar with the Hamilton run of comics from their inclusion in Boom's Power Rangers archive. There's an irony in this, and I don't know if it's sad, poetic, or both. But I'm pretty sure Bruce Hamilton would have loved and approved of Boom working hard to preserve the comic history of one of America's longest-lasting action shows. Well, that took longer than expected, but I guess now that we're done with all of this, we can start on the Boom comics. What's wrong with you?
I believe the Hamilton run ends on page 343.
But there's still half of this left! And volume 2?
Yes, there's a lot more crap, history, to sift through before we get to the Boom comics. Are you prepared?
It's too late to stop now. Next time, we're going to be covering the Marvel run, as well as the many other publications that tried to run Power Ranger comics. That's all for now. Till next time, as always, may the power protect you. And may it protect me as well. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Special shout out goes to Zamap. She is the amazing artist who made our wonderful new channel art. If you like her work, you can go ahead and follow her on her Facebook and Instagram accounts. Links to those in the description below. Also in the description below are links to articles we used while researching this episode. Well, take care, stay safe, and be good to each other.